He had no visitors, no family left. No one cared if he lived or died, except one. His final request before execution was not for a priest or a last meal. He wanted to see his dog. What happened after shattered hearts in the coldest corners of the prison? One guard quit. Another prayed for the first time in years. And Henry, the man they called a monster, knelt down in tears, holding something that proved he was not a monster at all. For 11 years, Henry barely spoke. He worked in the prison laundry, head down, mouth shut, forgotten. The other inmates called him Ghost. Even the guards had stopped asking questions about the crime that put him on death row. All they knew was the man never cried, never laughed, never asked for anything, until now. I would like to see my dog, he said quietly. The warden blinked. Your what? My dog, Henry repeated. Her name is Bella. I rescued her once. She saved me more times than I can count. It was not a typical request. Dogs were not allowed in prison. But the warden, who had seen every kind of last wish from men who were about to die, hesitated. Something in Henry's voice did not sound like a plea. It sounded like the only thread still tying him to this world. A search began. Records were pulled. Calls were made. Eventually, they reached an old woman named Kathy who had adopted Bella when Henry was arrested. Bella was 16 now, slower, grayer, but alive. She still waits by the door every night, Kathy whispered on the phone. The prison made an exception. On the day of the visit, the yard was silent. The other inmates were locked away. Guards stood back with arms crossed, pretending not to care, but every one of them watched. The gate opened. Bella shuffled forward, her old legs trembling. And then she saw him. Henry, a guard muttered, already crying. Henry fell to his knees as Bella collapsed into his arms. Henry buried his face in Bella's fur as the cold wind passed over the yard. Everything around them disappeared. The barbed wire, the guards, the grey sky. None of it mattered. He did not cry. He sobbed. Deep, broken sobs that came from a place buried for too long. Bella leaned into him, her old frame trembling, her tail sweeping the ground as if trying to clean the pain away. You remembered me, Henry whispered. After all this time, you remembered. Bella licked his cheek, slowly, like she was wiping away the years. Kathy, standing a few feet away with the leash still in her hand, watched with tears in her eyes. She held a folded photo, one taken long ago, when Henry was just a young man with a dog who loved him more than anyone else ever had. She never forgot him, she said softly to the guard beside her. When the police came for him, Bella barked until her voice gave out. Then she sat by the door for 3 days, refused to eat. I thought she would die. The young guard blinked fast, his eyes glassy. Another turned his back to the scene, pretending to check his radio. 15 minutes had passed. The warden cleared his throat, but his voice caught. He stared at Henry and the dog, his lips pressed together. Then he turned to his staff. Let them be. This is the only thing he has left. Bella's breathing grew slower, but she would not let go of Henry. She rested her head on his knee, her eyes half closed, her body still pressed tightly to his. Henry stroked her gently, whispering things no one else could hear, words meant only for her. Kathy knelt beside them. She's old now. She has arthritis. Some days she does not move at all. But when I told her she would see you, she changed. It was like life came back into her. Henry's voice cracked. She saved me. Even now she is saving me. And for the first time in years, Henry allowed himself to feel what he had tried so hard to bury: love, guilt, and something dangerously close to hope. Henry did not move, even as the sky faded to grey. Bella lay curled in his lap, her breathing soft, steady, but slow. The guards kept their distance. watching in silence. They had seen hundreds of inmates, hundreds of final moments, but never anything like this. It felt like time had paused just for them. She's tired, Henry whispered, stroking her gently. I can feel it in her bones. Kathy knelt beside him, her voice barely audible. She waited for this moment. She stayed alive for you, Henry. Henry looked down at Bella, her muzzle now entirely white. She always had more faith in me than I ever deserved. A heavy silence passed. She should stay with you tonight, Kathy offered, tears shining in her eyes. Even just outside your cell. She needs to be near you. The warden approached slowly, arms crossed but eyes soft. Animals are not permitted inside the facility, but I will see what I can do. Henry nodded. Thank you, but she should not see that place. She's not part of that world. Bella stirred slightly, lifting her head to look into Henry's eyes. Her tail wagged once, a slow, soft sweep of joy. She licked his hand as if to say she understood. Kathy handed him the old photo. This was taken the day you adopted her. You carried her home in your coat. She never stopped loving you. Henry stared at the image. He looked so young, so full of life. The man in that photo still believed in forgiveness, still believed in second chances. I never told anyone what really happened, he said quietly. Not because I was guilty of everything they said, but because I did not believe I mattered enough to fight. Kathy touched his shoulder. You mattered to her. You still do. The warden, standing behind them, slowly removed his cap and lowered his head. Henry leaned forward, his forehead touching Bella's. You saved me, Bella. In every way that counts. You made me human again. She closed her eyes and sighed. And for the first time in years, the prison yard did not feel like a cage. It felt like a goodbye worth remembering. The night before his execution, Henry sat alone in his cell, the photograph of Bella resting on his lap. The room was quiet, dim, and cold. But something had changed. He no longer felt numb. He no longer felt like a monster. For the first time in years, he felt human again because of her. The warden had made an exception. Bella was allowed to sleep just outside his cell, curled on a soft blanket. The bars separated them, but their eyes never broke contact. Every few minutes, Bella would shift slightly, making sure he was still there. You stayed with me, Henry whispered. You always did. Kathy had returned earlier that evening to bring food and one last hug. She did not say goodbye. Instead, she said, You gave her peace, and she gave you back your heart. Henry had said nothing. He just nodded, clutching the photo tighter. Sometime after midnight, Bella whimpered. Henry knelt by the bars and reached through, his fingers brushing the fur around her neck. She leaned into his hand, her breathing slow, shallow. Thank you, he whispered, tears forming in his eyes. Thank you for loving me when I could not love myself. Minutes passed, then stillness. Bella's chest no longer rose. Her tail no longer twitched. Henry called her name, softly at first, then louder. No response. A guard approached, then another. The entire block went silent. Henry sat frozen, hands still through the bars, his voice a broken whisper. Number. Not now. Please. Not now. The warden arrived. He stood for a long moment before kneeling beside the man everyone thought was beyond redemption. She waited for you, and when she knew you were at peace, she let go. Henry did not scream. He just placed his forehead against the bars, the leash in his hand trembling. Then, just before sunrise, the unthinkable happened. The phone rang. The governor had issued a stay. New evidence had come to light. Witnesses had recanted. The execution was cancelled. Henry's sentence was overturned. He was free. But it was too late for the one soul who had never given up on him. She knew? Kathy said. arriving just in time. She always knew. She stayed long enough to see you come back to life. Henry stepped out into the light, a free man. But the first thing he did was kneel beside Bella, because freedom meant nothing without the one who gave it to him. If you enjoyed this video and it touched your heart, please consider subscribing to my channel. Your support means the world to me and helps me keep creating more stories like this. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.